a mix of wisdom and insanity. In the late 18th century, something very unusual occurred, something that seemed as if it might break the perpetual cycle of serial tyrants. The event was the signing of the Declaration of Independence. What made the event unusual was not that the people were rebelling against a tyrant, which had happened countless times before, but that the rebels expressed some basic philosophical principles, rejecting not just a particular regime, but rejecting oppression in principle. Almost. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, which followed some years later, were a combination of profound insight and glaring contradictions. On the bright side, the discussion of the time was not just about who would be in charge, but focused heavily on the concept of individual rights and limiting the power of government. At the same time, the Declaration of Independence erroneously asserted that government can have a legitimate role in society to protect the rights of individuals. However, this has never been true in practice and cannot be true in theory. As explained above, an organization which did nothing more than defend the individual rights would not be government in any sense of the term. The Declaration also spoke of unalienable rights and asserted that all men are created equal, as far as their rights are concerned. But the authors fail to realize such concepts commonly rule out any possibility of a legitimate ruling class, even a very limited one. The very principles they expressed were then immediately contradicted by their efforts to create a protector government. One day they were declaring that all men are created equal, the Declaration of Independence, and the next they were declaring that some men, calling themselves Congress, had the right to rob, tax everyone else, U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. The American Revolution was the result of a hodgepodge of conflicting ideas, some supporting individual sovereignty and some supporting a ruling class. The Declaration asserts that when any government becomes destructive of individual rights, as every government always does the moment it comes into existence, the people have a duty to alter or abolish it. Yet, the Constitution claims to give Congress the power to suppress insurrections, U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15. This implies that the people have the right to resist government oppression, but that government has a right to violently crush them when they do. In short, the works of the Founding Fathers consist of a combination of profound wisdom and utter lunacy. In some places, they described quite well the concept of self-ownership. In others, they sought to create a ruling class. They did not seem to notice that the two agendas are utterly incompatible with each other. The result of their efforts was, in one sense, a gigantic failure. The regime they created grew far beyond what both Federalists and Anti-Federalists said they wanted. The Declaration and the Constitution utterly failed to keep government power limited. The promise of a government that would be a servant to the people, protecting their rights, but otherwise leaving them in peace, grew into the largest, most authoritarian empire the world has ever known, including the largest and most intrusive extortion racket ever known, the largest and most powerful war machine in history, and the most intrusive and invasive bureaucracy in history. In truth, the idea was doomed from the beginning. Perhaps the most valuable thing the great American experiment accomplished was to demonstrate that limited government is impossible. There cannot be a master who answers to his slaves. There cannot be a lord who serves his subjects. There cannot be a ruler who is both above the people and subordinate to them. Unfortunately, there are still many who refuse to learn this lesson, insisting instead the Constitution did not fail, the people failed by not doing it right, by not being vigilant enough, or by some other neglect or corruption. Oddly, this is the same excuse given by communists for why their flawed philosophy, when put into practice in the real world, always turns to violent oppression. The truth is that any form of authoritarian control, any type of government, whether constitutional, democratic, socialist, fascist, or anything else, will result in a set of masters forcibly oppressing a group of slaves. That is what authority is, all it ever has been, and all it ever could be, no matter how many layers of euphemisms and pleasant rhetoric are used in an attempt to hide it.